Hello ladies and gents, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be looking at this PlayStation 4 which has been sent in, and this has been sent in because it's got no display. So it could be a number of things what could be wrong with this. We could have an issue with the HDMI port, we could have an issue with one of the fuses or the diodes, one of the EMI filters or the HDMI encoder itself, or it could potentially be the south bridge. So there's several things what could cause a no display. So hopefully it's going to be something which we can fix and get it back to the customer in a working condition, save it going to landfill and save them having to buy a new one. So with that being said, if you are new to the channel and you like this type of content, I would really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and turn on the bell notifications, and that way you don't miss any future videos. And if you want to support the channel in any way, then I do have a Twitch channel where you can go over and subscribe. I do live stream on Twitch as well as on YouTube, but you can link your Amazon Prime account and become a Twitch Prime subscriber absolutely free of charge. Doesn't cost you a penny to do, and it does really help out the channel. So with that being said, let's get into this repair.
Phil, it's voiceover Steve here. You know you're supposed to comb your hair before you start filming, right?
Yes, and I also know that you work for Sticks Fix, not me. So what are you doing on my channel? Get back over to your own channel and never stop my video again. Thank you.
Right, we are. So the first thing I'm going to do with this is what I always do with the PlayStation 4 or any other console that doesn't display, and that's to just inspect the pins. And this looks to be a factory port. So let me show you how I can tell that. So if you take a look at the port itself, you can see the pins and you can see the grooves where the pins go into the actual plastic holder or whatever the hell it's called. The bridge, I think, I don't know what it's called, but basically you can see the grooves. And I'm going to grab a brand new replacement port, the ports that I use. So you can buy the factory ports, they are available, but the ones that we use, or most repair technicians, are going to be these ones just here. And you can see the difference. It's going to be a little bit difficult to focus, but you can see the difference there. This is a brand new port and there's no grooves there, so you can't actually see the grooves. The pins are embedded nicely into the port, into the middle of the port. And one issue with the PlayStation 4, especially on the original models, in fact it's only on the original models, sometimes the pins will slightly push out from the back of the actual port. So even though it looks good, it's not making a full contact with all of the required pins, and that causes no display. So that could be one cause of it. Now, obviously I haven't actually verified any kind of display issue yet, so that is going to be number 2 on the list. So what I'll do is I'll take a HDMI cable, and on the PlayStation 4 they do by default have what's called HDCP enabled, which is high definition content protection, and that basically prevents you from being able to use a capture card, and it prevents you from being able to display it on the PC. So I have to test it on the TV. So that's what I'll do first. So I'll wait for that to just allow power to flow through. There we go. And I'm going to make sure before I go any further, obviously the warranty stickers are still intact. So I'll make sure before I go any further that we've got a white light. So what happens is when you turn it on, you'll get the blue flashing light. That's the initialization stage. And once it goes to a white light, it tells or rather that's the system's way of saying everything's okay. It's appearing to work as it should, or at least the critical functions required for the console to boot up, and that it's basically attempting to boot. So you'll get the white light, and basically that tells you that the actual system's okay, but it could still have an issue with, for example, the south bridge or the HDMI port. If it's a south bridge, it would be because it's not putting out 5 volts to the HDMI port, but it could also be the encoder, the filters, the diodes, and things like that, and that's things that don't get checked by the system. So let's just turn the TV over to the correct channel, and we'll make sure that we've got the issue that's been reported. Right, so I've got my TV connected. This is rather interesting, and the reason it's interesting is because the TV is actually detecting a signal. So if I unplug the HDMI cable in 3, 2, 1, that's just unplugged, and it should come up with no signal now. There we go. So it comes up with no signal. If I plug the HDMI cable back in, 3, 2, 1. And any second now, there we go. And it's detected that the display is plugged in. If I view the info, it is actually picking up with 1920 by 1080p, which means that it is detecting something. So it's not going to be the South Bridge because we've got HDMI detect or hot plug detect. So basically what that means is there's a couple of pins, pin 18 and 19 I believe, which communicate with the TV backwards and forwards, and it basically allows the TV to detect the PlayStation, and then it allows the PlayStation to output the correct resolution. So the TV will report what resolutions it supports, and then the PlayStation will basically talk to it and say, right, okay, I can do that resolution, here you go, sort of thing. That's the simplified explanation. So there's some communication there. So it might not even be the HDMI encoder. It could just be a damaged pin or a blown EMI filter. So the EMI filters are there to filter out noise, and sometimes they do go bad. They can become open line and it prevents the data signals from coming through, and that's what appears to be happening here. We're getting no data through, so it's not sending any video signal through, but it is communicating with the TV. So basically, I'm going to say it might be a bent pin, to be honest, because it is a V1 port, and you know, they're not the best designed ports in the world. So let's get it apart. Let's see if we can do anything with this and hopefully get it fixed for the customer. So back on overhead mode here, I'm going to just press and hold the power button. I'm not going to just kill power because that's what the last person's done, and that's why you did try to reboot. So I'm going to wait for that second beep right there, and I'm going to leave this to turn itself fully off before I proceed. And there we go, so that's turned fully off. And if you are enjoying these types of videos, if you find them useful in any way, shape or form, then don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and make me look a little bit more popular than I actually am. And that's been taken off before. It's all good. That one hasn't. So someone's been inside here, maybe just to clean the fan or something along the lines of that. You know, that's absolutely fine. I don't mind working on things that other people have worked on, as long as they don't damage them, because if they do, they'll have to pay more. You'll find that a lot of these PlayStations now, they'll have at least had the base removed off them, and the reason for that is purely because they are getting old, and you know, they need cleaning, and they can't be cleaned unless you break the warranty seal, which I think is absolutely ridiculous, to be honest. But never mind, this will get some fresh warranty stickers on there, my own warranty stickers, when I'm done. So not to worry too much. So I'm going to get this apart. I'm not going to cover the disassembly process. If you do want to see one of these being disassembled, there are stacks of videos on YouTube showing you how to do it. Or you can just check out one of iFixit's guides. So iFixit do have some pretty good guides, and I recommend checking those out because they do go into quite a bit of detail when it comes to disassembling these. But enough rambling from me. Let's get this apart and I'll take it from there. Right, okay, so we are in, like Finn, and we're about to get the board out. There we go. And we don't have any bent pins on the HDMI port, so that is not the cause, or at least it doesn't appear to be from the eye. So I don't think that's going to be the cause. So what we're going to do then is we're just going to pop under the microscope, and we're going to run a few tests using the multimeter and see if we can figure this out. Okay, and the port looks okay-ish, however it is a little bit bent. So the actual port itself, the pins don't look straight. But I don't think that this has been changed. It doesn't appear to have been changed. I can't see any signs of flux. So flux is basically a little chemical which we use to... A little chemical? It's a chemical. It's a chemical we use to basically allow the solder to flow and prevent it from becoming oxidized. And you usually see at least a little bit of residue when someone's been in and worked on it since it's come from the factory. Because most people are not... Oh, what's this here? We've got a little dot here. I wonder if that's a blown diode. So basically, the factory will clean it with a ultrasonic cleaner or some other cleaning method. Or a sort of a type of ultrasonic cleaner, and usually you'll see some sort of sign So I'm just giving these the nudge test just to check them, and they do appear okay. They all seem to be connected. But like I said, that does look kind of skewed a little bit, even to the naked eye. So I don't think it's being warped by the camera. It does look as though that is out of line. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go into diode mode, and I'm going to pop my red probe on ground, and I'm just going to test these diodes. And we get 0.482 that side, 0.000 that side. Let's swap the leads around. 0.000. So the black probe's on ground now. Damn it. Always slip. Damn it. And open line. Okay, so that's reporting fine. Let's just check these in open line. Or rather 4 in open line. Yep. That all appears to be checking out absolutely fine so far. Yeah, so all of those reporting open line with the black probe on ground, which is normal. 0.564, that's a good reading. God damn it. 0.48, cool. 0.48, well 482, but just a rough reading. Yeah, 482. 489, that's a good reading. 298, that's fine. And 0.523. Okay, so they're all reading fine. So the next thing I'm going to check is there's a fuse just down here. It's marked with, I think it's X. No, it's S on this one. So it's marked as an S on this one. Let's just check and make sure that this is working fine, and it is. We've got 0.000 on a diode reading. I've got the hiccups now. That little scratch was me. That's nothing to worry about really. That little scratch was definitely me when I slipped. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just check these filters and make sure that the filters are giving me a good reading. So I'm going to pop one probe on ground again, the red probe, and again in diode mode I'm just going to test these filters. So these filters, or rather these first 12 pins, are basically what's called a differential pair, and these carry data. So what we should get here is we should get a diode reading. So on this one we get 0.448, 0.449. So that's a good reading. The one next to it is a ground, so that's going to be shorted directly to ground. And the one next to that we should get the same as what we got on the other pin. 0.447, yeah, that's within tolerance. And then this very next one is another filter. So this block of 3 here is a filter, or rather a group of 2 filters, but it's on one component. So this is one block, and basically it's got the positive and the negative side of the differential pair, and then you got a ground in the middle. And then it's the same for this one. You got positive and negative. I don't know which one's which, but you got positive and negative, and then a ground in the middle. So we'll check that as well. And 0.438, we're going to skip the ground. We don't need to check that. That's fine. We can check the ground, but I don't normally check them. Same with this differential pair, 0.429. That's a little bit lower than I would like it to be honest. I've got a feeling we're going to get, yeah, 0.433. So we're starting to see some differences here. 0.428. 0.428. So that one's correct, but this one's got a little bit of a difference. So basically, because we're getting different readings, we should be getting the same readings on these. And the reason for that, number one, is because these lines here are exactly the same length. That's why they're going zigzags and stuff. Sometimes on an Xbox you'll see them going like a squiggly line, but on this they go in this like weird like upside down Z sort of thing. But basically, because the traces are exactly the same length, they go from the pin to the via here, they go through the boards and they go to the filter. And then from the filter they go to the chip. And because they carry data, they need to be perfectly timed. So basically the data all needs to arrive at the same time, otherwise you're going to end up with corrupted pictures. So that's why basically I'm expecting pretty much exactly the same reading on all of these. But when we get down to this third filter here, we're getting different readings. And the readings are a little bit inconsistent for my liking. So on this one we've got 0.430. and on this one we've got 0.434. On this one here we've got 0.438 and 0.438. So we're getting some weird readings here. So I've got a feeling we've either got an issue with the filters or the encoder itself. So the next step is going to be to have a look at the filters. So the filters themselves are underneath this shield here. And what we need to do is we need to desolder this shield because it's soldered onto the board. But you do need to be very careful that you don't damage the board. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm just going to heat up at 480 degrees Celsius. And I'm going to direct my hot air to this one corner. It doesn't matter which side you start from, but I find it's easier from this corner. And then if you just take a pair of tweezers and carefully pop them underneath the shield, then you can put a little bit of upward pressure on. Just a tiny bit of upward pressure, and when it's ready to give, it will give. It's kind of like picking a lock. There we go, so that just popped. And it's the same again. We've got another joint on the far right hand side. We're going to just let that give on its own, just like that. Beautiful. And then I'm going to move this away for a second. Let that settle. I don't want it to solder itself back down. So I want that to move freely. And then I'm going to do the same on this corner. And you're going to hear it pop. Move it away, let it settle, basically let the solder reset. I'm going to do the same on this corner just here, but I do need to be careful this side because we're going to end up with damaged filters otherwise. So I'm going to do this corner, but I'm going to pull up from this side. And I'm just going to do the entire side now. Being careful not to pull up too soon. There we go. And then we end up with no damage to the board itself. Because otherwise what you end up doing is this entire ground plane literally just peels up. And it don't kill the board, but it just doesn't look good. It looks like you just don't give a shit about your customers, to be honest. So yeah, that's all done. So we can actually access this part now and be able to investigate. So we're going to take a look here, and we haven't really got much here. We've only really got the filters and the chip. I'm going to say that the filters are most likely going to be fine, but I am going to go into resistance mode, and I'm going to pop the black probe on the bottom. Well, it doesn't really matter which one you pop it on, but basically just test from top to bottom in resistance mode. We get 0.4 ohms on that, which is absolutely fine. So essentially what these are is it's just a coil of wire inside. 0.5, absolutely fine. And we're going to do that for all 8 connections. And the same for that reading. It's the same for that reading. It's the same for that reading. And a little bit lower on that one, but that's absolutely fine. Low is good. You know, anything up to about 1 ohm is going to work absolutely fine. And yeah, okay. All 4 of those filters appear to be working, to be honest. So, well, there's actually 8 filters there, like I said, but, well, we've got 8 data lines, 4 filters, and you've got a positive and a negative on each one. So I'm going to take a educated guess and say that we've got an issue with the encoder. So what I'm going to do, first and foremost, I'm going to add some leaded solder, and what that's going to do is it's going to lower the melting temperature required for this chip, and then I'm going to remove the HDMI encoder from the board, and then I'm going to take some 6337 leaded solder. I use Kester, but I'm going to take some 6337 leaded solder, and I'm just going to replace all of the solder on these pins. So like I said, it's going to lower the melting temperature and mean that the chip is going to desolder before everything else, and allow me to remove it safely without risking knocking, for example, the HDMI port off the board. So I'm just going to drag a blob of solder all the way across on every pin. Doesn't matter about bridges, this chip is coming off. But by mixing the lead-free solder that's on the board with leaded solder, it changes the composition and it lowers the melting temperature. Because lead-free solder requires more heat than leaded solder. But all you have to do is just mix it and it will change the composition of the solder and lower the temperature for you. Nice and simple, nice and straightforward. So with that done, I'm going to use the hot air again. I'm going to leave it at 480 because I'm taking this chip off anyway. I'm going to say most likely this chip is dead. And there we go. Chip removed. So there's the old chip that I've just removed. That's likely going to go in the bin. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to replace the solder that's on here once again. Just make sure that we've got enough leaded solder. There we go. Beautiful. And then I'm going to wick away the solder and create a nice blank canvas to work with. So I'm going to use some solder braid. I'm using MG Chemicals Super Braid or Super Wick Fine Braid, 2.5mm. So there's two ways you can do this. You can do this with hot air. So basically you can just replace the solder with some leaded solder and then just drop a new chip on and heat it up with hot air. I prefer not to do that because I want to put as little stress on this very sensitive chip as I can. So I'll basically create myself a blank canvas to work with and then just solder it by hand using the drag method. So I'll show you how I do it, and then you can, you can stick to the way I do it, or you can try your own methods. Either way, as long as we get a new chip on, or a replacement chip rather. I don't know if I've actually got any new ones, I'm not sure. If I've got a new one, I'll use a new one. If not, then I'll use a second-hand one. And I don't have any brand new ones, so I am going to use a donor. It's absolutely fine. The customer gets warranty on it anyway, so it's absolutely fine to use a donor. That is what donor boards are for. Reuse whatever we can off donor boards. Let's add some flux to that side, and I'm going to hold the chip in position. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little bit of solder to the end of my iron. So I've got a blob of solder there. That's way too much, but it's fine. And melt that flux. And then just solder the first couple of pins on this corner. Tack it down into place. And that side as well. There we go. And then we'll tack this corner. And now that chip's not going to move at all. So now I can just drag over the pins with the iron, and the solder should follow the iron, bonding to all of the pads at the same time. So don't worry about that blob for now. I will sort that out in a minute. I'm not bothered about a blob on the first pass. Just going to add some flux to the other sides. There we go. And then I'm going to do the same again for the top. I'm going to steal it. Whoops. I'm going to steal a little bit of solder from here. And I'm just going to keep on running over all of the pins. Steal a bit more solder. So I'm using that as a little reserve, which makes my life a lot easier. It means I haven't got to keep on picking my solder up. And eventually, it will clear that one side. Might have a couple of bent pins there. I'll have to inspect that closer. But even bent pins are fine as long as you make sure that they're all making a contact with the corresponding pad and that they're not touching each other. It's not a major issue. Okay, and that seems fine. But I'm just going to basically now keep running my iron across here and just keep picking up little bits of solder at a time. I don't really want to wick it because it just makes my life a little bit more difficult. So So I'll just run it backwards and forwards, and every time it's going to pick up a little bit of solder. There we go. So there's that one. There's that one. I'm just going to run over these once more, make sure I get any excess solder off. There we go. And this side as well. Give me that solder, thank you. And that is essentially the drag method. I had a little bit of a bridge there, but that's fine. Clear that up. And now I'm going to just clean up. I'm going to get rid of any flux that's on there, and then I can inspect really, really closely using the microscope and make sure that we've got any bridges. I do see a little bit of a bent pin there, so we might end up with a bridge there. These are very sensitive. We don't want to leave any bridges because it will likely kill the chip. So it doesn't matter where, we don't want to leave a bridge anywhere on this chip if we can help it. Okay, let me just quickly use some patent protected rapid dry technology. Lewis Rossman's got rapid cool. I've got rapid dry. If you don't know who Lewis Rossman is, I highly recommend checking his channel out if you enjoy repair content. Beautiful. Alright, so I'm going to inspect this really closely now. Beautiful. No bridges on that one. No bridges on that one. So even though we have got a slightly bent pin there, 3 from the top, it's not causing any kind of bridge. Just got to get this in focus every time because of the different angles of the board, and that all appears fine on that side. Yeah, perfect. And that side as well, absolutely beautiful. So I don't need to do the nudge test here. You can clearly see that we've got enough solder on each leg. It's all nice and shiny. We know we've got solid joints. You know, you can visibly see that there's solder on the pad and the leg. So I don't need to do the nudge test on this. I could do, but I think it's just wasting a couple of minutes of time, to be honest. You can visibly see there's enough solder on there. I do make a point to check my work normally, but with what I'm seeing there, that is definitely soldered correctly. I'm happy with that. Perfect. So I'm just going to clean up the old thermal paste. This did get clean, by the way. I wasn't filming when I removed the base, but this did get cleaned, which would explain why those base stickers, the warranty stickers, were already removed at some point. So it has been cleaned. Maybe not recently, I'm not sure, but it's been cleaned to a point where there's no dust inside the fan. It looks like the customer takes fairly good care of this, which is nice to see, because these are very fragile consoles. So put some thermal paste on, and I'm just going to put it back together just enough to get a display. Okie doke. Let's have a look. We get a display. Cool, that works. Absolutely perfect. So let's allow this to boot up. Here we go. I'm going to connect up a controller. Perfect. I'm going to go to network, set up internet, use Wi-Fi, and easy. Added to system downloads. Nope, you're not going to be downloading. I don't update software unless requested. Network sign-in failed. Yeah, that's normal because it needs a download. Okay, that's working. I'm going to pop in a test disk. It takes that in absolutely beautifully. So this is FIFA, which is going in. FIFA 16, I think. And it's not reading my disk, but this disk is dirty. So let's have a look. See if it does it this time. No, I'm going to have to clean my disk. I mean, to be fair, it's pretty filthy. They're test discs, which is normal. You have to clean them every so often. Let's have a look now. That sounds better. Not enough space, but it is reading. That's fine. It is reading, but there's just not enough space. So as soon as I clean that disc, you know, that's just got IPA smears on it, but as soon as I clean the disc, got rid of any flux and stuff that it's picked up off the desk, absolutely fine. Video output is automatic, which means it's working fine. And that is that. So all that's left to do on this is just to basically, well, shut it down first of all, and then I'm going to just put that EMI shield back on. So this is a EMI shield. It prevents noise from getting through. So basically all I need to do is just solder that back on. I'm going to wait for this to shut down before I start unscrewing it. There we go. Okay, so I'll just remove this top plate and the hard drive because that's going to be in my way. What I want to do is just solder this back on. I don't always solder them on, you know, completely, because, you know, as long as the shield's there, you don't need to waste too much time on it. As long as the shield's there and it's soldered. I have seen people just using Kapton tape as well on these, so, you know, it's not a major issue if you don't put it back on or if you just stick it back down with Kapton tape. I do prefer to solder it wherever possible though. So, being very careful because it is hooked up inside the housing. Just going to take a blob of solder. A nice big blob of solder. And just solder that on there. I'm going to hold it for as long as I can. It's very hot. It really doesn't take long for the heat to transfer. But that's one side soldered on. I want to put as little flux on this as possible. I'm going to press down with tweezers now because I can. And there we go. So that'll make it so as it's still protecting the area. I mean, you've got gaps underneath it anyway, as you can see. Let's not do it while the port's plugged in. But it's got gaps in it anyway, so it doesn't matter if all of the corners are soldered. But basically that's just going to keep it from allowing noise to pass through to the HDMI encoder. But at the same time, it's going to make it a lot easier for someone else to remove it in the future. Because, you know, someone might not be as careful as me. They might end up tearing up that big ground pad or doing further damage, and you know, you want to try and avoid that if possible, even if it's not you that it comes to the next time if it does fail again, because these do fail regularly. So even if it's not you, you know, you want to try and do as much as you can to avoid any kind of further damage in the future. So basically I'll just solder it on enough to hold it down, and that is it. It provides no function other than to basically prevent any electromagnetic interference from passing through. And that's job done. So yeah, that was rather straightforward. I mean, I kind of had a feeling it was going to be the encoder. It usually is. But as soon as I put another one on, bang, straight away, done. So yeah, this can go back to the customer working. I've just got to put it back together and then sign off on the test sheet, and we're pretty much done. So that's going to be for this video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful in some way. Maybe there's some information in there that you know, you might help you to fix yours, or that you didn't know before that you do now. Either way, if you did enjoy it, remember to give me a thumbs up. I really do appreciate the support, and it lets me know that you enjoy these videos and keep you motivated to make them. If you do want to support the channel, you can do so by using the Twitch link in the video description. You can become a Twitch subscriber, or you can become a Patreon subscriber using the Patreon link, or you can become a channel member using the join button below the video. You can also use a new feature on YouTube called a Super Thanks, which there should be a thanks button where you can leave a highlighted comment, and you know, you can leave a little donation at the same time. There's also a PayPal link as well if you want to use that. That is probably the best way to do it if you do want to support me. I did get a comment a couple of days ago from some, well, I'm just going to say it, some moron saying, "Stop begging for money." I'm not begging for money. If you want to support me, then I really do appreciate it. But if you don't, that's fine. Just watching the video is absolutely fine with me, and it does support me. So, with that being said, that is going to be it for this video. Don't forget to subscribe if you are new to the channel, and turn on the bell notifications, and that way you don't miss any future videos. And until next time, I'll see you later. Bye for now.